main thing that we've all learned is that Adam is a cheap date. I'm quite proud of the fact.
Hi, and welcome to our tasting room for Bacchus Uncorked. I'm Jonathan from Bacchus Wine Tasting, and this is...
And I'm Adam from Musing of a Man.
In today's edition, we're going to look at Crémant.
So this is the first ever Bacchus Uncorked. So we thought we'd just take a minute and kind of qualify ourselves and kind of exactly what we are doing here. Not to be rude, but I know why I'm here.
I don't really know why I'm here.
I know why. Well, I have all the gear.
And I brought the wine.
And we're currently in my cave. So, which is the taste. It's the tasting room.
It's definitely the tasting
We're in the
room.
tasting room. So I do a lot of. I have a slightly successful YouTube channel where I do gadgets and all that kind of stuff. Now, of late, we've been doing a lot of home brewing and beers and stuff. And the reason why I know Jonathan is that my wife and I have done far too many private wine tastings with him, virtually and in the house. So that's why I'm here. What makes you such the great guy who can sit next to me?
Well, I really just wanted to bring some great wines over and tap into Adam's expertise, get the lights on, get the cameras rolling, and dive into some themes. Because I know when I'm out and about doing the wine tastings with Bacchus Wine Tasting, there's so many common questions that keep coming up.
Yeah.
Then I think we can tap into that and hopefully answer some of them. So the theme for the session today is, of course, Crémant.
Crémant.
And we have a nice selection in front of us. We've got 4 from different regions.
I'm glad my bed's just upstairs.
But before we do go any further, I'm going to throw it straight back over to you and ask what ideas and thoughts kind of come up to the surface when that term Crémant is put on the table.
The main thing, 4 bottles to be exact, the main thing I remember with Crémant is that it's French and it's sparkling.
That is a very good start.
I really hope you don't take any offence to the fact that that's really all I remember.
To be fair, that is the strongest position we can hope to be in. You can look at the bottles and the first kind of conclusion that most people will come to is that we are in the world of sparkling wine. We've taken the cages off.
But it's not champagne, that's what I know.
And you know that as well.
I do.
There we go.
Because it's spelt differently.
So let's recap over there, because we've hit the 3 main kind of target points really. We are sparkling wine.
Okay.
And we are pretty much exclusively in France. There are 8 regions throughout France that are legally permitted to call their sparkling wine Crémant. There is one other region, and that is in Luxembourg. So that is worth bearing in mind. But for the purpose of our session today, we are going to focus completely on French Crémant.
You say legally. Is that as legally as champagne can only be called champagne when
it is as illegal as
in the region of Champagne?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. But what's really, really interesting is, and one of the main territories I'd like to explore in the session today, is that idea of Crémant being wallet-friendly champain. And a lot of people love to jump on that idea.
Honestly, I love that term, wallet-friendly.
like, I expect to load up the car and the boot with cases of the stuff.
All right. Now that's a booze cruise.
And to be fair, there is some truth in this. And obviously people aren't kind of throwing this idea around completely willy-nilly. But what I would like to uncover today is a little bit more about what makes Crémant different.
Okay.
And what makes champagne different, transversely. And there are some quite significant differences, really.
Like between, even these 4?
Even between these 4.
Oh, okay.
And what I've deliberately done today is pick 4 Crémants from 4 different regions, probably the 4 most significant, really, for France.
Okay.
So we'll see some differences between them, of course, but all together, we'll see what differences there are with Crémant in general and champagne.
Okay.
So we've already mentioned that we've got different regions. So let's stay there.
All right.
Because, of course, Champagne is one region. And we can literally go the whole width and breadth of France and go to these regions. So we can go kind of as north as Alsace. We can drop down to Bourgogne. We can go into Jura. We've got Savoie. We've got Die. We've got Limoux in the south of France. We've got Bordeaux. And we've also got the Loire Valley. So we've got 8 really big players across France.
Sorry, just to play the idiot at this point.
Go for it.
So champagne, I know this isn't champagne, but champagne is called champagne because of where it's not only grown but produced.
Yes, so the geographical location for Champagne, which is, you can take the train, you can fly into Paris, take the train, you're about 30-40 minutes and you're in Champagne.
Right.
So it is Champagne, it is soil that you can stand on and touch.
So it's grown and it's produced.
Yes.
The actual champagne is produced there, the drink is produced
all
there.
Within that area.
Whereas Crémant, does that just have to use a particular grape?
Well, this is probably the single biggest factor of what makes Crémant different to Champagne, because each of these 8 regions, just as Champagne does, has its own regulations and laws, and that dictates what grape varieties you can use, the aging that is deployed in for those wines as well. And of course you've got the difference between the terroir. So that's another big term just to throw out there. It sounds great and classy.
That's the soil, right?
It is the soil, but it's a lot more as well.
I'm so proud of myself.
A lot of people will say it's the soil, and that is a very, very important factor. Terroir is quite a large encompassing term, so it does mean the soil, but it means all kinds of climatic factors as well. So your climate, your microclimate, your daylight hours, your vineyard location, in terms of how close is your vineyard to large bodies of water. That could be lakes, rivers and seas. The aspect of your vineyard, its angle and proximity. Is it north facing, south facing? How much intense sunlight is it getting? If your vineyard is also planted at altitude, have you got cooling factors as well? So terroir is an encompassing term for anything really that can impact on the growing of the grapes.
Oh, okay, right.
And because we've got so many different regions that of course have different terroirs, you're going to have, and you've got different grape varieties being grown as well, you've got so many different factors going on that inevitably you're going to have very different wines. And we've already touched on the fact that you're going to have 8 different wines from around France. Clearly these are going to be different to Champagne.
I was thinking that, were you just saying about like the soil and the climatic things and the aspect and all that, even if we just apply that to England, even in the small area that you live, like what the soil is like here it's like clay, you could literally make a pot here. But where I grew up in Lancashire, there was a very low clay count in there. So yeah, I can imagine like throughout the whole body of France, there are so many different types of, not just, I'm kind of going on for soil because that's the only answer I had. But yeah, the climate, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And this feeds directly into the grape varieties that are chosen in those areas. So I suppose straight off the bat, some people might say, well, if you're not using the same grapes as Champagne, which are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, then are we using less inferior grapes? Are we using cheaper grapes? And some of those points could be valid for the winemaking elsewhere, but it's really important to home in and realise that actually that's not necessarily the case. Different winemakers and grape growers are selecting the grapes that perform best in that region,
based on the
terroir. So it's all gone full circle.
Good, like it.
Now there is another really important factor that makes many Crémants different to Champagne as well. So I'll put that question on the table, and thinking about what you know, being the great Champagne lover that you are,
after 2 glasses I'm anyway.
What do those Champenois do with their fizzy wine that makes it extra special? Once it's been made, once it's been popped in the bottle, what are they doing?
Is it the second fermentation that's in the bottle? You talk.
Yes. Because not only are they French, not only are they sparkling, but they are produced in that traditional method as well, which is that second fermentation in the bottle. But beyond that, the Champenois are really famed for aging. That's what I was hoping to go.
So they're bottle aged as well?
They're bottle aged,
so not just in barrels.
Yeah.
They have to, I guess do they have to because of the carbonation of it, or am I being an idiot?
No, that second fermentation is going to happen. And crucially, what's happening with traditional method sparkling wines here, so we're obviously talking about Champagne, we're talking about Crémant, we can talk about English sparkling wines, we can even talk about Cava made in this method as well. What happens when that yeast and sugar is added directly into these bottles, which is what makes the traditional method so special, is the yeast cells start to break down and die. And at this stage, rather than calling them dead yeast cells, the French call them lees.
Lees.
Sounds a little bit softer.
Is that the sediment in the bottom?
That's the sediment in the bottom. And that is kept in there. And we can go back to law now and legal definitions and requirements, because in Champagne, a non-vintage Champagne would have to be left on the lees, aging in bottle on the lees, for a minimum of 15 months.
Okay.
But it's interesting just to say off the back of that those big names in Champagne, so your Grand Marques, think about your Bollies, your Tats, your Paul Rogers, they will typically double that. So we're talking 3 years for non-vintage. And then for your vintage Champagnes, the minimum requirement is 3 years, but those big houses, those Grand Marques, will go 6 years at least. And then if you want to go a little bit crazy of how long the Champenois aged some of their wines, we can talk about Dom Perignon. And your P1s for Dom Perignon are aged for at least 8 years. And if anyone's got pockets deep enough for Dom Perignon, then you may go in for a P1 first of all. They need to be considerably deeper for P2s and P3s, because their aging is quite exceptional. P2s, 15 years.
They're not wallet friendly, no.
We are the furthest away you can be. These are enemies of the wallet.
A wallet foe.
The P3s are aged for 25 years, so there's a lot that goes into them.
Yeah, that's something that you and I have talked about before, and a lot of the price of a wine is how long it's had to be stored for.
Yes, it's a huge impact for the producer.
Well, yeah, you've got to pay for that time. It's literally storage. You wouldn't store like your stuff, all these storage units that are up there. You've got to pay for that time in there, and that works its way into the cost of the output being the wine.
This is what I love generally about the wine world, because you really, really do get what you pay for.
Right.
You might not always know what it is you're paying for as a consumer.
Yeah.
But you can sleep easy at night knowing that you've probably paid a fair price.
Right.
If you've paid a few more quid for a bottle,
yeah.
There will be a reason for that. And equally, if you're selecting bottles that are a little bit more wallet friendly, a little bit more approachable, we say in the wine world, then there will be reasons for that as well.
Right. And if you find one that's almost nicely in the middle, which is an okay price that it's not necessarily friendly on your wallet, but it's kind of up there. But the quality of it really shocks you.
Yes.
Because it's to such a level. That's almost like the happy medium.
That's the sweet spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you can get that wine that you have found that has excited you, and made that moment special, and you've got it at that sweeter price, then we're all very, very happy with it.
It almost tastes better, doesn't it, when you think, I've got that for a really good price.
Absolutely. To go back to the aging then for Crémant and what makes that different to Champagne, the legal minimum requirement for aging is just 9 months. What is also really interesting, if you go geek on wine, which sometimes I can do, but I don't always share it. But there's been a lot of research that has gone into this debate about, Crémants and Champagnes being, equals, are they, aren't they? And to touch on that aging point specifically, in terms of its chemical makeup, Crémant isn't born the same way as Champagne in one argument. So let me just stay with me and let me take you into the birth of sparkling wine.
You know what I've said before? Certain things that you come out with is pretentious.
Have I just hit
that?
That alarm's gone off.
It's born in a different way.
And what I mean by that is wines, not all wines can age. Popular to, contrary to popular belief, because they haven't got the chemical makeup to allow them to survive. So let's just think about our oldest and dearest in our families. We hope very much that they age gracefully.
Right.
And we would hope that for a good bottle of wine as well. But unfortunately, there are some prerequisites that won't allow many wines to go through the strain that a wine is put on to age. So wines need to be really relatively low in pH, need higher acid, and they need quite a low phenolic count in the wine as well, so less phenols. And well done for staying with me.
I'm with you.
And actually, Champagne hits that mark. It's very, very low pH, and it has a very low phenolic count as well. But Crémants, of course, don't. They have a higher pH and they have a higher phenolic count as well.
That's alkali.
Yes. So they're higher in alkali, which means that they typically can't stand up to that aging process.
Right.
They will depreciate over time. It's that acidity really that Champagne has that allows it to stand up to that aging process. It's a really key characteristic of the wine and its makeup.
Because there's something still going on in the bottle.
Yes.
Got you.
You've got to really, when you think about wines being aging, that things will strip away over time. So you've got to have bags of it in the first place, really. It's not just about acidity, although that's really important, but it's about its fruit profile and its body, to name just a few. And it really needs to be well equipped in those areas to then go on that journey for aging, especially if we're talking serious time, 6, 10, 50 plus years.
Of course.
Some of these regions, and certainly some of the wines that we're going to taste shortly, share at least one or two of the same grape varieties that you would find in Champagne.
You said Champagne was Pinot Noir. No.
Yes.
Yeah, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier.
Yes.
And the third one?
Was the white grape.
Pinot Grigio.
Chardonnay.
Sorry. Should we get on with the first one?
Let's do the first tasting. So here we are. We made it to the first tasting. Cheers.
Cheers.
So we're going to taste our Crémant d'Alsace. This is the Arthur Metz.
Arthur Metz.
Really, really famous producer in the region of Alsace. So give it a little, check out the colour, little twirl, little sniff, little taste. And
you've taught me to smell it from about here.
Well, you should probably get, at this level, some aromatics.
I am.
Because it is. I mean, we would expect this from Alsace anyway, because we are, classically cool climate aromatic wines are.
You said Rieslings. I said Gewürztramins. They're all quite really
very aromatic grape varieties. Yes.
Would you say aromatic?
Aromatic probably sounds a bit more romantic.
Pungent. You can tell why I'm on the beer, aren't I? Normally.
What is really, really quite special about this particular Crémant as well, and what makes it a real steal for the price point, which I won't divulge just yet, is that we have had our aging on lees. Think back to the intro of the session. 24 months here, so we're 2 years.
So the minimum is 9.
For a legal minimum for Crémant, so we've gone well beyond that straight away.
This is 2 years.
Yeah, we've actually gone above and beyond minimum requirements for non-vintage champagne.
So is that what makes it the more richer colour?
Yeah, we're getting a little bit more gold kind of colours coming through from that aging. Yeah, which is really, really nice. But on the nose, we've still got that lovely freshness. Alsace is a really interesting region for Crémant, actually. If I said in terms of percentages, how much production for Crémant do you think comes from just Alsace, considering that we've got 8 regions around France?
I don't know, 20%?
50.
So
huge, half. And the aging is great, 24 months. So, and I think that is giving us some really nice richness to this wine as well. So, we've got those aromatics. It's
quite warm on the nose as well, isn't it?
You've got the classic citrus and green fruits, apples.
Okay.
That you would expect. But I think what's nicer where you're getting that little bit more ripeness from the fruit, that little bit more generosity. There's some nice stone fruits there. There's a little bit of peach. You could perhaps stretch to a bit of apricot.
I did actually just think peach, by the way. I wasn't just waiting. What else do you smell on that?
A touch of apricot. Yeah, but I think as well, just on the finish, some dried fruits.
That's what I was going to say.
And I think I would definitely attribute that to the aging. So you've got what we would in the wine world classify as tertiary characteristics. These are characteristics that have come into the wine from aging.
Okay.
Rather than your primary.
Actually being there.
Yes.
There is. Yeah. Okay.
There's been a bit of evolution in the wine, and you only get that if you're prepared to let that bottle sit on its lees.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm having a go.
Do you remember at the intro where we were talking about how important acidity was?
My mouth is
Yes.
flooded.
Yeah, that will be down board, don't you?
One thing that Jonathan has alluded to before, to kind of measure the acidity in any wine, really, isn't it? Is once you've taken a sip, lift your tongue, and just see how much you salivate. I mean, seriously, I almost need a serviette.
It's. I mean, I'm just sitting listening to you now, and I'm still aware that it's still going.
Yeah.
But what is lovely about this particular wine, I would say, is because acidity is great in wine. It makes it very fresh and drinkable, but it can easily stand out of balance. And I think because we've got quite a generous fruit profile, it can stand a bit out of balance. So if your wine appeared a bit sharp, or you did that classic thing where you go, when you have a not very good wine.
Yeah.
And it's quite a lot of times, particularly for white wines, it can be because the acidity is out of balance with the rest of the wine.
It doesn't feel like it's out of
balance.
Not at all.
It's not really generous fruit.
It doesn't make you pull the face. So is it the fruit that then kind of nicely rounds that?
Kind of levels up to the acidity, but also that aging and that roundness that's on the palate, that slight creaminess to the mouthfeel is balancing out that acidity as well.
So,
now, can you put a price on the bottle?
Can you put a price on perfection?
We've started off relatively strong.
It's almost putting itself up against maybe those lower level champagnes. I know that kind of a half decent lower level champagne is probably talking about 20-25 quid a bottle.
And so stay with around the £20 mark, but then think as well, you are a producer in Alsace and you're making Crémant, and you know you're not champagne, and you know people will make comparisons, so you're not going to charge champagne prices.
Oh, okay.
So where are you going to go now from 20?
It kind of feels like you're leading me down.
I'm helping a little bit.
What, 15?
15 would be fair. So actually this is our first supermarket entry. This is ASDA. This is Arthur Metz. Full price, it's $12.99. It's on offer now, $8.99.
Stop
and
it.
That is an absolute steal.
Forget about the booze cruise. There's a 24-hour around the corner.
No, I'm not on any commission from Mr. ASDA. However, credit where credit's due.
Next one.
Welcome back for tasting 2. So we are now Crémant de Bourgogne, and we have a lovely offering from Terres Secretaires, which is a really, really highly regarded cooperative. So we're not talking single producer here, but a cooperative rather. And we are just in the more southern regions of Bourgogne. We're just south of the Côte d'Or. So you might be thinking slightly warmer than obviously more cool climate Bourgogne. So we'll see what kind of impact that has on the fruit.
Well, because very, very similar to us in the UK, we're still at the point where the further south you go, the generally warmer the climate is. Apart from the microclimates there, where we've spoken of before. But okay, so we get
northern equator, further down south you go, more daylight hours, more sunshine.
Right.
Yeah, more opportunities to
depending on the
nice
aspect. The aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are things that you can do to enhance that as well.
Which affects the terroir.
Yes. You're very quick learner.
I
am. Now another few. Have again. Check out. Have a little look at the colour, a little sniff, a little taste. A few of the points to pick out on this particular wine as well. Our aging potential is exactly the same as our previous Crémant. Actually, we're 24 months here as well, so significantly more than is required. But interestingly there as well, we can draw more similarities with Champagne. Let's talk grape varieties. In the Bourgogne region for Crémant, you can expect to find Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, which of course two of the more significant grape varieties for Champagne. You can also find Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Aligoté. A little bit of Gamay can be found
all
as
in
well. Not in this particular one. And Melon de Bourgogne is allowed. So I think there's around about 7 grape varieties permitted to be used in Crémant. For this one, this is actually, Adam, a Blanc de Blanc. Can you tell me anything about Blanc de Blanc?
White on white?
Yeah, white on white, yeah.
So I'm still on the nose right now. God, I sound like a connoisseur, don't I? So I still haven't had a taste yet, but I will say that although the first, I'm terrible with names.
The Arthur Metz.
Alsace.
Alsace.
Right. So the Alsace, the Arthur Metz smelled, I'd say, fresher.
Absolutely.
This one is. This is leaning more towards champagne for me.
You're getting that complexity, which is absolutely bob on. It was interesting because when you first took your first sniff, you were struggling a little bit because you weren't getting fruits.
Right.
So and we were talking about what other things could be going on there, and I think you're absolutely right. You know, we've got more autolysis here, more autoclitic characteristics coming from
what.
The autolysis is the word.
I swear it's another one.
We kind of touched on it before. So when we were talking about one of the kind of benchmarks for champagne and Crémants, the traditional method, the aging that these wines go through on the lees, the process of the yeast dying and breaking down to become the lees is called autolysis, and they give autoclitic characteristics into the wine. So when you taste these wines and you ever feel like you might be getting any notes, aromas or flavours of anything to do with yeast, bread, toast, brioche, pastry, you can see where I'm going.
So the Alsace for me was aromatic.
Aromatic and fresh.
This is more perfumed.
More perfumed, more complex. We've got primary characteristics, but we've got secondary. We've got that woodiness, that bit of smokiness. We've got tertiary, so we've got some creaminess. We've got some dried fruits going on in there as well. Quite
a nice warm. We're getting the ambers as well. Again, here. What you can't see here, we've got big soft boxes, and the way in which that I don't know if you're getting it from where you are, but we've in the reflection of the glass, we've got a great bit of white there just to really light it up, so you can really see that.
It is.
And it's going right the way to the rim as well, isn't it? So I mean, that colour is holding all the way through. You can tell that with the aging, can't you?
Now, you were very, very keen on the first. Where are we standing? 2 wines in.
I haven't tasted it yet.
Let's have a look.
I'm such a pleasure delayer. I am.
But that is it. I always say that is a really, really good cue and indicator that you are enjoying the wine, because you're enjoying that delayed gratification.
That's
You're
it.
getting a lot off the nose.
Yeah. There's loads on this.
So hopefully the palate lives up to...
Okay.
I think it's delicious. Very rich. It's very opulent. It's generous on the palate.
And yet cleaner. It's
clean
much
tasting.
Cleaner.
Yeah.
There's nowhere near as much. Actually, there is still that acidic level, but I mean, you're going to get that with a Crémant. I'm starting to learn. But
shall we reserve judgment to the end, or do we think we're going to place this in the front runner as a front runner already?
If we're looking to try and match champagne, definitely.
Okay.
For me, this is more. I'll give you. This is more a nice cozy evening, whereas the first was more of a crisp spring afternoon.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you've got almost like a bit of a sun trap.
Yeah.
There's no breeze. You've got your shades on. First time you've done it of the year. Do you know what I mean?
I think so. I would add to the Arthur Metz as well, aperitif. You know, great aperitif. Get the party started, especially if you're getting some people over. Then that would be your perfect offering. And I love the idea of cozying up in front of the fire.
That's what that is. I think they're equal runners for me, and that's probably because of my awful layman palate. But I think they have different.
Yeah,
I think they
different merits. Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree. We have touched on 2 nice broad styles: aromatic, fresh, vibrant, fruit forward, versus complex, generous, and opulent.
So the Alsace,
yes,
I was shocked. $12.99 on sale currently for
$8.99.
$8.99. That's just mental. So this has got to be more expensive.
Yes,
considerably more expensive.
Comparatively, yes.
Okay, so let's take the $12.99 rather than the current special offer, as it were. Although if you're watching this anytime recently, seriously, get yourself down to ASDA with 2 bags for life. I'm gonna say double. I'm gonna go double
would be a good
$12.99, so 25, 26 quid.
You are pretty much bang on the money there. So online retailers, I think I have seen it for as much as £24.
Okay.
But shameless plug here.
Bottle shop.
$19.50.
Link in the description. Can I get an affiliate link? On to the third?
Yes, on to the third.
I have to get rid of that one now, aren't I? What does a French cow say? I don't care. I'm saying it a second time just 'cause I'm just so proud of that. I never make a joke. So this is Limoux, Limoux.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So we are in the Languedoc region in its own designated zone, Limoux, in the south of France.
I'll be interested for this one.
So we are
I'm not
ready.
going to lie to you.
No, and I wouldn't want you to.
If I don't like it, you'll wear it. I know we didn't discuss that.
So we are in Limoux, quite rightly. And the great varieties that we can expect to find in our Crémants from this region are Chenin Blanc. So that's probably our first mention of Chenin so far.
Yeah.
Chardonnay, Pinot Noir as well, being probably the most significant in this region. In this particular Crémant that we've got, we have majority Chardonnay. So we can draw some comparisons with the Bourgogne that we've just had. But there is a proportion of Pinot Noir as well. And the producer, Antech, will say that gives a little bit of backbone, a bit of structure, and a bit of finesse to the wine.
I like that. That's very good. It's almost like you know what you're talking about. So from if memory serves, the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay are both champagne.
Yes.
I kind of feel almost like I'm a little bit rude now, constantly referring back to champagne. Because I'm getting to the point now where I realise that Crémant really has its place.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the shadow of champagne. Just because it's just because it's in the league that is what's known as French sparkling champagne.
And in reality, will any producer making Crémant be ever able to escape that? I'm not so sure. Because champagne is champagne.
Yeah, but also because we're in the old world as well.
Yes.
Because we're in old world region, champagne is always front and centre.
Yes.
With the likes of a Merlot.
Yeah.
That's the French way. That's the American way. A Merlot. You're having a Merlot.
But even when we're, and I hear it so many times in conversations and tastings, even when we're not even drinking sparkling wine, champagne will still find its way into the equation.
Right.
But I think that is really, really important to remember. Crémants in their own right need to be celebrated and enjoyed.
Yeah, very
We
much.
started off the session by talking about that somewhat misconception of them being cheaper versions of champagne. But actually with clever selections, you can really appreciate how great these wines are. Whether you feel like they are the same as champagne or it's just great in its own right.
That's it. I mean, that's it. It's enjoying a Crémant for being a Crémant, not how close it is or how it compares to a champagne. I don't know if I've gone down the route that you were expecting me to go or hoping I would go, but that's kind of where I feel like it's almost like I don't want to look at Crémant as the I don't know, like a poor nephew or a poor cousin of the champagne. And I kind of feel in the wine world that's kind of what it is, really, isn't it?
I think you do get both ends of the spectrum as well. I think you do get the poor relation. And even in extreme cases, the relation that's been exiled from the family because it just does not live up to expectations.
Won't stop drinking.
But then you also get the ones that are really close in the family unit that are very similar.
Right.
And then maybe you've got those that have flew the nest and gone off and done their own thing and are being celebrated in their own right.
Okay. I'm
Now,
building huts somewhere.
I wonder what number 3 is telling us then.
Okay.
So I'll move. Let's give it a little.
It's a very similar nose.
It is to our Bourgogne, isn't it? It's still got that richness.
Yeah.
So the aging, which I'm yet to mention, is actually even more than the 2 that we've tasted so far. We're actually 30 months on the lees here, so we're 2.5 years.
30 months.
So we're kind of knocking on the door of that kind of minimum benchmark for vintage champagnes at 3 years. We're not that far away from there.
So just, I mean, it may be only a handful of minutes, but it's a while since he said it in real life. So champagne is 15 months.
Yes, for non-vintage.
Non-vintage. Vintage is
3 years.
3 years.
And we're 2.5 here.
2.5.
Of the 3 that we have tasted so far, this is our first vintage. So this is vintage 2018.
Oh, God.
So just very quick overview on that. When we talk
2018,
about
sorry,
non-vintage...
it's 2022 now, so that's a 4-year vintage.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
And of those 4 years, we know that 30 months of those 4 years, the wine has still been in contact with the lees. There's been other things been going on since then. There'll be time on cork as well, which the bottle needs to rest before sale, and then there's another period of time as well. But just to give an overview, because we've touched on those terms non-vintage and vintage a few times. So non-vintage, we're talking about wines that have been produced from multiple vintages, multiple years, where the winemaker will get some wine out of their tanks from vintages from 2017, 2015, whenever. Whereas a vintage wine...
and blend them.
And blend them together,
Okay.
yeah. So multiple years, juice from multiple years, blending together. And we can use that term parcels again. And then vintage, where the juice has come from grapes of 1 year's harvest. So that's why you'll see that stated on the bottle, 2018. That's particularly significant for Crémants and Champagne in particular, because of the challenges climatically that producers have in more northerly regions, because your harvest and your fruit quality isn't always great. And when it's not great, you need to supplement that with the good juice from
a previous
year.
So a particular year where you have maybe harsh frost.
Yes.
During that period where on the vine there'd be really
Maybe the sunshine hours in the latter weeks and months in July and August weren't so great. Maybe your grapes didn't get to full ripeness. We've still got to do the best we can with what we've been handed by Mother Nature,
right.
But we can supplement that with some reserves from previous years.
Tried and tested.
That's our non-vintage.
Okay.
So this is our first vintage. This is 2018, and we're 30 months on the lees, and we're saying that we're still getting that same kind of richness and opulence from the previous Bourgogne. I would add that we've probably got, for the first time, some really nice bright grapefruit citrus notes on the nose.
I had to take a drink of that, I'm sorry. Oh.
It's very inviting.
Oh, it's very... yeah. Is that sure for... Oh, that's nice. Sorry.
Lovely.
Yeah, sorry. We were talking about the nose. I just couldn't help it anymore.
I do think that we've got... I would say actually for the Limoux, a really nice middle ground between the Alsace and the Bourgogne, because I think we've still got really nice purity of fruit and vibrancy and acidity, but you still have that kind of nice round, generous palate coming from the extended aging as well.
It ticks more boxes than each of the previous two do separately.
Okay.
And it ticks exactly what you're saying there. It's a lot more fruit forward than the second. And that quite possibly is in the fact that it's aged more. Maybe it's allowed the two to almost meet a little bit more in the middle. The oak, because there's definitely oak in there as well. There's definitely that woody feel, but maybe that's allowed to dissipate.
Quite as pronounced.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's still there on the nose, but nowhere near as pronounced.
Yeah. Really jumped out of the previous glass.
Oh my God, nearly smacked me in the face.
I also feel like you can get that, you can attribute that bit of richness to the Pinot Noir that is in here as well. So that little bit of red fruit generosity can be on the nose and the palate as well. Yeah. And I think that's probably a bit of a game changer to what we've had before, given that we had 100% Chardonnay with the Blanc de Blanc. And of course we have Pinot Blanc for the Alsace as well. So we have our first introduction of a bit of a red grape in here as well.
Right, so the way that's working with the Chardonnay in there is almost, they're pulling each other forward.
Yes, yeah. What I'd probably add to any discussion on Languedoc is that it is the biggest wine producing region in the whole of France. A third of the wine made in France comes from Languedoc.
Right.
So scale is massive. To say that you can judge the wines fairly from the Languedoc, you'd have to drink some wine.
Right.
Yeah, some serious wine.
So
I would
quite
say
naive
explore more. Well, no, I mean, not necessarily, because, to know how big the scale down there is, you as a general consumer, you're not going to know that.
Right.
And what consumers will quite rightly do is make their mind up usually on one bottle of wine.
Well, yeah.
Because you're not going to waste your time or your hard-earned cash on that again.
I don't work
on your cash, wherever it has been derived from.
So you've said that this is the first of the vintage.
Yes, of the three, this is the first vintage we've had 2018.
So I'm going to say this is definitely more expensive than the first two.
That is a logical conclusion to come to, yes. So I would stick on that track.
That's such a lawyer answer. Oh, so I would stick on that track.
Stick on that track.
If you'd left it, that would have been a logical conclusion. I'm going to walk you down the wrong way. It's actually a fiver. So obviously the second, the Bourgogne, was definitely, for me, twice the price.
Yes.
I wouldn't say this was twice the price of the Bourgogne. So I wouldn't say we're up like 45, 50 quid.
No. I'll put you out your misery and say that we are actually shaving £2 odd off the price for £17 a bottle here. So we are a touch lower. Which
you were being a lawyer.
Limoux as a region is often touted to be the region that we're producing traditional method sparkling wines even before Champagne. So we go back to the 16th century, which is some time before Dom Perignon was apparently tasting stars in 1693. So we're getting a lot of tradition and heritage in that bottle for 17 quid.
So this is the century before Champagne. Wow. We're like in the Renaissance period.
We certainly are.
Wow. Let's go on to number 4.
Yes, let's do. So now we have our Crémant de Loire, and we have got Chenin Blanc. It's one of the main grape varieties for the region in the Loire Valley. You can also find some Cabernet Franc and some Pinot Noir as well for these sparkling wines. But this is Chenin Blanc through and through.
It's still quite warm tones.
Yeah, I think we've had that pretty consistently with all of these, and I think we've had a lot of talk about aging, and we've obviously got that deeper colour coming through from all of these wines, and it is a classic hallmark for these traditional method sparkling wines. So it's nice that we've seen that present in all 4
absolutely.
wines.
It's definitely all the way through there. That's a bit sharper.
Yes, it is a little bit harsher on the nose. I think the autolysis is a little bit more evident on the nose actually, and it's probably somewhat more difficult to get some primary fruits out of the nose on here. I feel like I can almost smell a bit of the alcohol in this wine as well actually.
Yeah.
And you get a bit of warmth on the nose from that.
Like the solvency.
Yes, absolutely. And all of these wines will be knocking around. I can just see 12.5 here, fairly standard for this style of wine. 1 or 2 maybe around about 12, but we'll be within that 12.5. So I think that's somewhat telling that we can smell that on the nose actually. So that we haven't had that with any of the previous wines yet. Right.
So would you say a better technique, a better quality wine that is around a similar ABV hides it?
I think it would be harder to detect, yes, because you'd have more fresh fruit aromatics, or maybe some of those secondary characteristics coming in from the wine, and some of the tertiary as well. So on the nose, and I'm not saying that this is by any means a terrible wine.
I'm not knocking it.
On the nose, they're somewhat out of balance in comparison to some of the other Crémants that we've had so far, I think. There's a bit of like zestiness, citrusy, and I'd say apple. Yeah. And I
think green, really green, like a golden delicious.
And I think here, for the first time, we're probably a little bit more in the realms where you'd stick with more general cluster terms. So I'd say citrus rather than lemons or limes, and I'd say green fruits rather than apples and pears, really. Yeah. And I think that's a bit more of a sign of quality and premium producers, where you get those clearly identified fruit characteristics, and I think
this is definitely pineapple. Quality. This is definitely banana on the nose. Yeah. This is definitely, you don't get that with.
I think overall we're somewhat out of balance on the nose. We can feel a little bit of alcohol coming through on the nose. And for our fruit clusters, we're more citrus and green fruits.
It's a bit more generic.
Yes, yeah. I can still feel that autolysis there. It was a little bit, like you say, a little bit harsh on the nose. Actually, the palate is a bit more rounded than the nose, I think, leads you to believe. I feel it's a little bit more easy drinking. I feel you can appreciate that kind of citrus and green fruit a little bit more. I think the acidity is in good check with the fruit.
Definitely, yeah. I don't mind that.
No, do you know what we've done here?
We've come straight off the back of a vintage.
Yes, and from great regions, Limoux, Bourgogne. I think a real surprise was how much we enjoyed the Arthur Metz from Alsace. I think we've had some really, really great Crémants.
And that was from ASDA for currently £9.
Yes,
on offer.
So the battle of the supermarkets could be another episode altogether. But we've had, I think we've had a great selection so far. And I do think this is still a great Crémant. Price-wise, we are £12. I do know that it is quite often on offer for around about the £9.50 mark, but currently, as it is today, full priced at £12. So I think that probably just illustrates how much of a steal the Alsace is from ASDA.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I get that. So you've already chosen your number one.
I have.
That's because you know what you're talking about.
This is completely down to your preference.
But that's the beauty of wine, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Which wine have you enjoyed? That is all it comes down to. Not the price, not the area, not the label, nothing else. Straight off the bat, we've done a lot of the talk. At the end of the day, which one ticked the boxes?
I've literally changed my mind literally on that point there.
Okay.
I'm going for Alsace first.
Wow.
That's my number one.
That's really impressive.
That's my number one. Number two would definitely be the Limoux.
Okay.
And I think it might be because my palate is so juvenile, possibly. So I'm going to go first, second, the Bourgogne third. And obviously, we know that this is fourth.
Yes.
So while I pour my number one, which I can't believe
it's the
it.
cheapest.
I know.
Even when it's full price. Actually, when it's full price at $12.99, it just goes above the £12 Sainsburys. Taste the difference.
And that's the standard price for the...
and that's how much it is at the moment.
Wow.
So, and then we were £19.50 for the Bourgogne and $17 for the Limoux. My favourite that I poured, it was a really, really tough choice. I went for the Limoux.
Tough against what?
The Bourgogne.
The Bourgogne.
Yeah, I would, and that probably is really pretentious because they are the two dearest. However, I would echo the surprise and gratitude for how great that is, and I think it's stylistic for me. So when I want. When I'm looking for a really nice sparkling wine, I am looking for that really kind of full, generous palate. And I like that complexity, that kind of interests me. So I would normally align with these kind of wines.
Is that because these lean more towards the champagne?
Yes, yeah, absolutely,
aging,
yeah. It's got all that in, and that isn't because I'm necessarily looking for a champagne equivalent,
right?
But that's the style of wine that I tend to appreciate when I'm looking for these sparkling wines.
Right.
That being said, different occasions call for different wines, and then I would instantly go for the Alsace. It's been a good tasting.
Yeah, it has, and I think, do you know what, the main thing that we've all learned is that Adam is a cheap date. I'm quite proud of the fact. Listen, this is a brand new style that we're doing. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've made it this far in, congratulations. Again, if you've enjoyed it, please click the like button. It would be absolutely lovely. If you would like to see more, subscribe, turn on the bell. What I think above everything else, what we'd love to know is what grapes would you like us to look at?
Yes.
I think that'd be important.
We'd love some engagement in the comments and discussions below. So if there is an area or a theme of wine or a style of wine that you're particularly interested in, throw that in there. We'd love to consider that. There are endless opportunities and possibilities. I've got some great ideas coming up, but I'll definitely be guided by any thoughts and opinions that come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you made it this far and you don't fancy commenting about anything, or if you are, at least put in your comment, I made it this far. We'd love to know who makes it this far. But seriously, cheers for the first one.
Cheers.
Here's to many.
Here's to the next.
Thanks
Thanks
for watching.
everyone. Good night.
Cheers.
With a smooth board with this.
With a what?
Little smooth board.
Smooth board?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's like charcuterie cheese, isn't it?
Seriously, this guy. I want to be him. I just do. Hey Google, what's a smooth board?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, we're going to mention it another couple of times. We're about 5 minutes on now, and neither of us know what it is. This one came up with it. We don't know if it's a smorgasbord. I don't think it is, because smorgasbord just means a lot, doesn't it?
But that is the premise of one of those boards. You pile it with food.
If you know what we're talking about, please just leave a comment in the description and put us out of our misery, because I always accuse Jonathan of making words up. He clearly just has.
I just have. For the first time.